Most small businesses are vulnerable to costly OSHA fines, up to $16,550, because they fail to adequately identify, assess, and control safety risk. And here's a secret that a lot of EHS gurus won't tell you. The complex systems used by the larger corporations are not required to do a risk evaluation correctly. Today, I'm revealing a simple 4-step method that I've used during my 20 plus years in EHS to help businesses uncover dangers, protect their teams, and save thousands without all the extra fluff. So, with that, let's get into it. We'll start, of course, at step 1. This step is crucial in the process, but it's one that most organizations tend to gloss over. In order to start your evaluation off on the right foot, you need to assemble your team. That's right. These analyses are not a solo sport. When you as a leader try to go it alone, you're just setting yourself up for failure. Now, any old team won't cut the mustard here. You need the right group around you to support you. But before we get into what to consider when choosing your team members, I need to tell you that it is an absolute must for you to document your risk evaluation so that you can prove later that you actually did it. And one of the easiest ways to do this is with my basic workplace safety risk assessment tool. This powerful Excel workbook captures all your info, generates the risk scores for you, and also has a one-click summary report function for easy communication. And it's free. So visit the link in the description to get yours. So you need a great team around you, but how do you choose the people? Well, you'll want individuals who work well in highly collaborative settings. You're going to be looking at a lot of different things and passing things back and forth, and everybody just needs to work well together. You should also strongly consider individuals who are detail oriented and thorough in their work. Furthermore, the team should be diverse, so choose people who have different functions, different seniority levels within the organization. Collecting different perspectives is a cornerstone of sound analysis. The other reasons for team diversity we'll discuss more in step 2. Also, in my experience, those with a desire to help tend to be a little more motivated in this sort of process than workers who fell into the other duties as assigned trap. So I like to start my team building by asking for volunteers. Now, for a pro tip. Even if your risk assessment team is really small, like say you and one other person, make sure that at least one individual is a frontline worker. These employees see and hear things that managers just don't, and they're usually the closest ones to the hazards. Frontline employees are also very knowledgeable about how things actually get done on the floor. They hold a wealth of information and experience that will benefit your risk assessment. As we move on to step 2, let me share a little truth that I've learned from my years in environmental health and safety. Most business owners only realize their true hazards when something goes wrong. But by then, you can only react, and that usually involves you spending more cash. The edge truly comes when you decide to be proactive, which is why step 2, hazard identification, is such a vital step in the risk assessment process. During this phase, you're going to hunt for the hazards before they have a chance to unleash their havoc in your work environment. Okay, this step starts with defining what a hazard actually is, because it's not just something dangerous lurking in your workplace. A hazard is any source, big or small, that could cause harm. Certain materials, equipment, job tasks, environmental conditions, and even animals. Yes, you heard me. Animals in the form of pests can fit that bill. Okay, so you know what a hazard is. Now it's time for you to start finding them. Your team will want to cast the widest net possible here. This is where the diversity that I mentioned in the last section becomes vital. The hazard identification will have you looking at a lot of different things within your facility. You will want people who deeply understand your business from an operational perspective, an administrative standpoint, and from the regulatory angle. All of those outlooks rarely exist in just one individual. During this step, you will need to examine the following: all your safety data and information. I'm talking about injury, illness, and near miss reports, your procedures and plans, monitoring and sampling results, equipment manuals, inspection records, safety data sheets, job hazard analyses. Well, you get the idea. As you comb through this data, you are looking for any indication of hazards that you hadn't previously considered or that might not be adequately controlled. For instance, an uptick in slip, trips, and falls may indicate a floor issue in a certain area, or a closer look at your safety data sheets might reveal a hazardous chemical that you didn't previously account for in your HASCOM program. Next, you'll need to look at your physical workplace, searching for items, processes, and site conditions that could potentially harm individuals. Here, I suggest you use the Abby method by looking above your head, below your feet, behind objects, and inside things for less obvious malfunctions and substances that could cause harm. And don't forget to think about your heat, radiation, and vibration sources. Also, talk to other employees, contractors, and even visitors for their insights into the hazards at your facility. Lastly, you're going to want to review changes in your staff, your processes, or any materials that may have inadvertently caused hazards. Contractors coming on site or seasonal process changes can often result in dangers that you may not have even considered. Now, as you move through these checks, you will want to document the hazards you identified, who may be harmed, and any steps you've already taken to protect people from the harm. It is the strength of your hazard listing that will directly affect your ability to be able to appropriately assess your risk and adequately reduce it during steps 3 and 4. All right, as we dive into step 3, it's time for some brutal honesty. Spotting a hazard does nothing unless you understand the actual potential that it has to disrupt your business. That's what step 3 is all about, determining the risk. Now, it would be helpful before we start to actually know what a risk is. A risk is a situation involving exposure to danger. It's that simple. A hazard only becomes a risk when you look at two things. First, the likelihood, i.e., how likely is this hazard to cause harm to your specific business setup? Number 2, the severity of the consequences. If it were to happen, how bad would the damage be? Think injuries, legal hits, lost revenue, and even total shutdown. Again, differing perspectives here are gold, which confirms the importance of choosing your team well in step 1. Now, for each hazard that you uncovered in step 2, you will want to rank the likelihood and the severity. A simple scale of 1 to 5 will do, with 1 indicating the lowest likelihood or severity and 5 being the highest in each category. To arrive at a risk score for each hazard, you just multiply the likelihood by the severity. Then you'll want to assign a risk level to each risk score. An easy way to do this is with a risk matrix. As you can see on your screen, the highest scores signal high risks. The lowest scores signal low risk. And the ones in the middle are medium risk. The goal here is to recognize your hazards in the highest risk category so that you can prioritize those as you move on to step 4. Now, if you have an aversion to math or you want it to just be even less complicated, remember my basic workplace safety risk assessment tool auto calculates these scores for you. So don't forget to grab a copy. Before moving on, there are a few things that you'll want to keep in mind during step 3. First, don't overthink it. Trust your gut, but back it up with facts. Look at what's happened before. What's almost happened? How often could individuals actually be exposed to the hazard? Next, consider polling the larger workforce when assigning your risk. Employees' insights into near misses are invaluable. Encourage everyone to rate risk honestly with no sugarcoating. Now, I know I sound like a broken record, but do not forget to record your rankings, your risk scores, and your risk levels. If you don't document it, it never happened when it comes to inspection time. Risk determination is how you transform your program from what I call safe by luck to safe by intention. It sets the tone and shapes the actions that you're going to take to safeguard your people from harm, as you'll see as we move into the final step. Okay, step 4 is where you leap from spotting problems to actually crushing them. Too many businesses settle for surface fixes, and they end up paying out over time. But not you. Step 4 is about controlling your hazards to reduce risk. The secret to this step is the hierarchy of controls. Proven by decades of safety science, the hierarchy of controls forces you to tackle your risk at the root, not just throw personal protective equipment, i.e., PPE, and paperwork at them. Let's work through the hierarchy from most to least effective. First, elimination involves simply removing the hazard altogether. For example, you could bring an elevated process down to ground level, taking away the fall hazard and making the risk 0. Next on the hierarchy is substitution, which entails replacing the risky process, substance, or equipment with something that's safer. For instance, you could swap out your current part washer solvent for something that's less hazardous. Engineering controls are next, and these are changes to the physical environment to protect your people. Common examples here include guards over moving machine parts, better ventilation, and noise barriers. Moving down the hierarchy, we have administrative controls, and these basically adjust how you work, how the work is done. Here you'll be looking at items like training, scheduling, rules, procedures, signage, and job rotation. Finally, the hierarchy wraps up with PPE, which acts as the last line of defense. Common examples here would be safety goggles, gloves, high-vis vests, and steel-toe footwear. Now, here's a pro insight. Never leap to PPE as your go-to. It's the weakest defense. You should only use it when that's all that you have left. The main purpose of step 4 is to select and implement hazard controls tailored to your operation that will protect your workforce. So you'll want to ask yourself if the control will actually work for your people in the real world. Here's a wonderful place to start. For each risk that you identified as high or medium in step 3, jot down every control that you could feasibly apply. Then choose the most effective, not just the one that's the most convenient. You'll also want to consider if combining multiple controls for your major hazards is an option. Now, once you have your controls selected, you need to actually implement them to reduce risk. Making hazard controls everybody's responsibility means that it will never get done. So make sure that each implementation task has an individual who will be responsible for it to ensure completion. Also, track your progress to keep everybody accountable as you're going through and you're implementing your controls. Remember, hazard controls are not one and done. They demand critical thinking, investing up front, and following through. That is how you slash risks and future cost. Now, I wouldn't be doing my job very well if I didn't share with you a few more pro insights. First, prioritize culture over compliance. Foster an environment where hazards and safety improvements are discussed at all times, not just when you're prepping for a regulatory inspection or you have to report your injuries to OSHA. Next, don't surrender to paralysis if you get stuck in your assessment. Utilize free online resources. Reach out to your industry association or businesses that you partner with. Furthermore, many EHS consultants, like myself, also offer complimentary intro sessions where you can get questions answered. Also, regularly revisit your safety risk assessments on an annual basis. By doing so, you'll be better equipped to catch changes, identify ineffective controls, and maintain solid risk management. Here's another tip that's more on the business growth side of things. Utilize your assessments for leverage. Showing proactive risk management can unlock better vendor terms, attract top talent, and give you negotiating power with your insurers and garner premium prices from customers. So why not use it? Finally, don't overcomplicate things. Take advantage of simple tools and scale as your business grows. Don't forget, you can snag a copy of my workplace safety risk assessment tool to keep things straightforward without sacrificing any of the insights that you'll gain from the process. So there you have it. My simple 4-step method plus some small business bonus tips on how to do a safety risk assessment. If this video brought you value, please be sure to like, subscribe, and share it. Doing so helps me help other small business leaders who may be struggling with their environmental health and safety concerns. Are you ready to expand your safety risk management? If so, you can grab my secrets to reduce your safety risk during emergencies. Just click on the video on your screen to see them. Stay safe, environmentally aware, and productive. And I'll see you in the next video.